This episode contains spoilers. Please listen responsibly. Hello everyone, my name is Jason Ramirez and welcome to Season 2, Episode 3 of the Hit List Podcast. A podcast where me and a guest cross off films from our watch list by watching them. I'm joined today by social media strategist, content creator, and podcaster Daniela Sandoval. Daniela, thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me today.
So before we get started, can you tell me a little bit about your streaming viewing habits? Whenever you sit down to watch a movie, do you choose something new or do you stick to your favorites?
I'm always on Netflix to even start. Recently I'm really into like anything that kind of like speaks on Mexican politics. But generally, if I'm watching anything to have like some background noise or whatever, I gravitate towards things that I have already watched, like New Girl or Malcolm in the Middle. More shows than movies, definitely. But recently, I just rewatched The Twilight, like all 4 movies or 5 movies on repeat. So I go back and forth with a lot of things that I've watched or new things that I want to watch. But yeah, all on Netflix or Prime.
I definitely feel that as well. Whenever I want to have something in the background, I put on something I've seen before because I don't want to miss anything if it's a new thing. Lately, I've been watching Regular Show again over HBO Max, and I think I blew through like 30 episodes within the past week because each episode is like 10 minutes, so it's really easy to get through, and like a lot of them I've already seen, so it's like nice to like look back. What did I watch back when I was in middle school and high school? Like you know what I mean.
Yeah, like nostalgia. It's all nostalgia. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also so funny because like a lot of the stuff that they do as an adult, I realized, they were drunk. They just said that they're drinking soda.
Yeah, like same, like, I mean, for me, Malcolm in the Middle, since I just rewatched it, the last time I watched it, all 7 seasons, was probably my sophomore year of high school. And now that I kind of like, with more, I guess, maturity or whatever, or age now, like, there are so many, I guess, hidden messages that I find with, especially like with Lois and her husband, Hal. Like, it's so interesting how I gravitate to different characters as I am older. So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, definitely. So, I want to mention to everyone real quick, we're doing something unique with this episode. So, the 2 films we chose were released in the same year in good old 1984. And we're also lucky because we've both never seen either movie before we went in. So, we kind of went in a little blind with these movies. The 2 films we'll be discussing today are Footloose, directed by Herbert Ross, and Romancing the Stone, directed by Robert Zemeckis. I just want to say that, like, I really liked both movies, one more than the other. But whenever I hear 1984, I used to think of the book, but now I think of Wonder Woman and how people hated that movie, but I love that movie. Yeah, that's just my own tangent. I like to go on tangents. So, Footloose is a 1984 American musical drama film directed by Herbert Ross, and it tells the story of Ren McCormick, played by Kevin Bacon, a teenager from Chicago who moves to a small town where he lives with his mother, aunt, and uncle. Throughout the film, McCormick is seen attempting to overturn the ban on dancing, which resulted from the efforts of a local minister, played by John Lithgow. So, Footloose was on Daniela's list. So, Daniela, tell us, why was this film on your list?
I don't know. I feel like it's always a movie that I've like heard of, and you always hear of Footloose as being like a classic, and like how it's like the soundtrack is great, and to even start, like, I think the thing that I appreciate the most about films or any movies is the soundtrack. And I mean, it has an amazing soundtrack, and I had just never watched it before, and really like just Sarah Jessica Parker's in it, and I love Sarah Jessica Parker, so I just I just never got around to watching it because I'm not like a huge like romance kind of like chick flick type of person like that. I like to watch movies, but yeah, I decided to step out of my comfort zone and just put it on my list and watch it.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say necessarily that this movie was on my list, but I definitely knew about it because it's referenced everywhere, you know? And the song is played like if you've heard the song at least once, even if you've never seen the movie. And I know the lyrics like you're loose, footloose. Ba-da-da-da-da. It was also a song that was used in regular show, by the way. It's just so amazing how much this movie has had an impact on American pop culture. And it's even used in reference to like policies that like try to govern the way people live. Recently, I saw season 3 of Cobra Kai, and the schools were trying to ban karate. Actually, they banned fighting because you have to ban fighting. But the city wanted to ban the karate tournament, and Ralph Macchio's character, Daniel LaRusso, he said, like, what is this, Footloose? Like, we can't just ban karate. I was like, yeah, there we go. Come on, guys. But as far as, like, the pop culture thing, it's just everywhere. And I just never had the chance. I never really had the interest either. But I was glad I got to see it as well. So, what did you like about this movie?
Aside from the soundtrack, the opening credits, I just really liked because all you see are, like, dancing feet. And it's like a whole, I think maybe 2 minutes of that. And you just see like the shoes changing and like the moves changing. And I just thought that it was a really nice touch to it. Like, I feel like that's just a general theme with a lot of 80s movies. They have like really cool opening credits. And I really appreciated that because now when you watch like, I guess a more recent or modern film, you'd never get like opening credits with that same like kind of like, I guess, like, energy. Even, like, slasher films, like, with, like, 80s slasher films, like, they have, like, really cool opening, like, credits, and, like, now you don't really see that. So it was, like, nice to kind of tie into nostalgia, I guess. But, yeah, I like that part.
Yeah, I definitely like that part as well, where, like, it's just dancing feet. I'm like, oh, you don't really see this anymore. I can't think of anything recently, but most movies these days get straight to the point where like, oh, we're in the action. Oh, stuff goes on. And Footloose, the opening credits was like kind of credit to its name, like it was just dancing feet and they were loose with it. So, yeah. What were some parts of the movie that you didn't like?
I think I'll talk about the characters a little bit. The 4 main characters, I guess you could say, were Ren, Ariel, Rusty, and Will. And I mean, it's a given that I loved Ren. Ariel, I didn't like Ariel. I don't know about like the actress that played her. If it was just her that I was like not sure about. And actually, her name is Laurie Singer. I don't know. Maybe it was just her character. It wasn't even like her, but I didn't really like her throughout. And then Rusty, she was also like my favorite character, and Will, I just didn't like Ariel, but that was throughout the movie the most consistent thing that I found kind of like I guess that I was criticizing. But the casting, I would say the casting.
Yeah, definitely the cast. Like John Lithgow, I've seen him in other movies. He played a very believable character because, like, to this day, you see characters like him, like preachers, like who feels as if it's his burden to save his church. I've met those people in real life. I kind of lived through that as well. And as far as you said about Ariel, yeah, I did not like Ariel whatsoever, like at all. Like, I guess because she kind of had like issues with her father, being too controlling. And also the fact that she's a preacher kid, and like if you ever met preacher kids, they never follow, or like most of the time they don't follow like their parents' wishes. For me, the minute I stopped liking, like I didn't stop liking Ariel, like, oh yeah, I do not like this character, is when she was on like the 2 cars in the beginning of the movie, and the truck wouldn't stop. First, also everyone's kind of at fault here because Ariel like just got up on there being stupid, being a rebel, and also the man in the truck saw them. But didn't stop.
Yeah, he was just gonna like keep going.
He just kept going like, come on, get out of the way, I gotta go to work. Like, no, you stop. Come on, like pull some responsibility out your ass, like he was far enough away to have stopped safely.
But he was also going downhill. And it's like it takes time to stop at like, a big like truck like that, I feel. So
but
like,
he didn't even try though.
That's true. Yeah, but maybe I didn't like Ariel to that point. Like, I don't care that he didn't try to stop. I'm just kidding. But no, yeah, I get that. That was pretty annoying though. I thought it was annoying to how reckless she was.
Yeah, very. And I thought they were going to talk about it. I thought they were going to talk about that she was depressed or suicidal. Because that wasn't the first time she put her life at risk, you know? Like, she got herself on the train tracks and, like, deliberately yelled at it to, like, come towards her. And Ren had to save her at the last minute. But to me, just kind of felt like she was just doing it for attention. Because as you noticed, like, she felt like, oh, do you love me now? Like, what? Whoa. What? But, like, she didn't say it. She didn't say it, but, like, the look in her eyes kind of felt like, are we going to kiss now? Like, do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, but that wasn't the first time she did it.
Yeah, that was the second time she did it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like that was just a flaw in her character. And I think that, yeah, definitely, like, I thought that was, like, really annoying. Like, just that recklessness. And she definitely did not deserve Ren. But...
No. Like, Ren was too good for her. Yeah, so speaking of Ren, I never thought I'd relate to a character so much. And at first I didn't want to like Kevin Bacon because his last name is Bacon, but, you know...
Yeah.
And it was hard not to like him because he's very charismatic in the movie. And you want to root for him because he's the underdog.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is like TMI or like, but I don't know why I really liked his nose. Like, he has a nice nose. I don't know, it's like really nice. It's like pointy, like, I don't know. I felt like I was, like, always drawn to his, like, nose for some reason, like, in every shot, or when he was, like, dancing, but, yeah, probably TMI, but, yeah.
I think I was too distracted from his hair to notice his nose.
Oh, he has great hair, too.
I didn't think it was great. I felt it was, like, it was something, I bet.
Oh,
great.
I like his hair, too.
I can't say much because my hair is, like, a mess right now. Like, look at that. If I push my hair to the sides, my hair is, like, still up, and my head looks like a mushroom. Look at that. So let's move on to like some fun facts about Footloose. So for the part of Ren, before it went to Kevin Bacon, Tom Cruise and Rob Lowe were considered for the role before it went to Kevin Bacon. And I find it amazing, like all these men, Tom Cruise, Rob Lowe, and Kevin Bacon are still relevant to this day. I don't know the history of Kevin Bacon's celebrity status, but I believe this movie helped him a lot in the end.
Oh, definitely. I feel like this is what made his name. Like, even in like some articles that I was reading before, like he wasn't like kind of like that well known, and this just kind of, you know, the character of Ren really set his career. It like skyrocketed.
And the thing is with like for Tom Cruise, the casting directors wanted to get him because they liked his underwear dance and risky business.
Oh my god.
But he was unavailable because he was filming All the Right Moves, which I think is a football film. And Rob Lowe, he auditioned 3 times for the movie. And he had the look that the director wanted, but an injury prevented him from taking the part.
Yeah, that's interesting.
At least he's on Parks and Rec.
Yeah, but, well, I don't know. I guess now I can't unsee, like, for instance, Rob Lowe or Kevin Bacon being, you know, Ren. But Rob Lowe, I feel like they look kind of similar in certain ways, which is interesting, and I can see that.
Yeah, definitely. What I was very surprised about was that many actresses were considered for the role of Ariel before Laurie Singer was cast. This is a pretty long list. So, first of all, Madonna wanted the role as well, but I'm just going to read off the list. So there was Melanie Griffith, Michelle Pfeiffer, Jamie Lee Curtis, Rosanna Arquette, Meg Tilly, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I hope I said that last name right, Heather Locklear, Megan Ryan, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Jodie Foster, Phoebe Cates, Tatum O'Neal, Bridget Fonda, Lori Loughlin, Diane Lane, and Brooke Shields. It's a long list, and one of them committed a crime.
Oh, that's nice.
Lori Loughlin. The college scandal. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I'm like, don't even get me started on it.
Let's just say a lot of people were upset. I was one of them.
Yeah, I was pretty, yeah. But let's not get into it.
Let's not get into it. Let's get into Sarah Jessica Parker, who played Rusty.
I love Sarah Jessica Parker.
She received the Best Young Supporting Actress in a Motion Picture Musical, Comedy, Adventure, or Drama nomination at the 6th Annual youth in Film Awards. I think that she deserved the Oscar for that one. She was amazing, that one. like the character, like she embodied it, like she kind of felt like that character.
Yeah.
When I saw the credits, I saw Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm like, SJP was on this? What? And she wasn't the star? She was just like, she was one of the main characters, but she wasn't the main character.
Yeah, that kind of bothered me a little bit, but
you know what? She got Sex in the City, you know?
that's true. Yeah. She's Carrie.
Was she?
Carrie? Carrie Bradshaw?
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
she's like the main character.
I thought you meant Carrie, like the Stephen King Carrie. I'm like, wait.
Oh,
what?
no. Different Carrie.
Did you find any other fun facts about this movie?
Yeah, so, you know, it was filmed in Utah, in like a small town. I don't remember the name of the little town. From that, like the fact that it was filmed there, they started the Utah Film Commission, and then they made the town into kind of like a tourist attraction, which I thought was really cool. And then, yeah, so definitely now on my bucket list, I want to go to Utah. See, I didn't think I would ever want to go to Utah, but now I do.
Don't a lot of astronauts come from Utah as well?
A lot of what?
Astronauts. I think there are like a lot of astronauts that come from Utah. So something about Utah compels people to like leave the planet.
Oh, wow, that took a dark turn.
I maybe it's just Utah, you know.
You know, they stopped selling alcohol, I think, at 9 p.m. So past 9, you can't go buy alcohol in Utah. Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy, right? Yeah. At least here where I am, you know, like it's 24 hours, but conservatives, you know.
Well, I live in Maryland, and for the longest time, I believed that like liquor stores were separate from like grocery stores, because that's the way it is in Maryland. You can't buy liquor at a grocery store in Maryland at all. You have to go to like a liquor store. And when I went to like Virginia and I saw liquor beer was being sold at Walmart, I was like, wait, what has this country come to?
Really?
Because I remember I had that conservative mentality.
No, yeah, but that's so interesting because, like, I mean, I would probably have the same, I guess you could call it culture shock, because I'm from California and I see that all the time at any grocery store. So it'd be strange to not see it, you know?
Yeah, it was strange to, like, see it, and I was like, what? And then I realized, oh, Maryland's an outlier.
Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting.
You said also, I think you texted me, you said that, like, some of the extras paid to be on the movie. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so actually in the high school that they filmed the movie, instead of, you know, just getting rid of, like, basically the whole student body, they decided that, like, every day that the students would be on, like, extras for the film, and they were being paid $3.50 an hour to do it, just to be extras at their school during the regular school day, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Wait, so the students were paid, the extras were paid?
Yeah, so essentially the students became extras, and they were being paid $3.50 an hour to just be there. Yeah, so I thought that was really cool, and like that they incorporated like the actual locals into the film. So that was cool.
Yeah, I was confused by like the way you worded it, because I thought that you said like the extras paid to be in the movie, and like no, they were being paid. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Talk about that, because that sounds like some laws were broken right there.
No, they paid them.
But yeah, this whole thing about like shooting in a small town reminds me, and I got these vibes while I was watching this movie too. It gave me mad Napoleon Dynamite vibes, because that film was also shot in a small town, and they also cast local people who are actually in the town as like extras in that film. And I don't know how much they were paid, but they used a lot of those students for those scenes. And I think I heard somewhere that like their credit scene is like one of the longest credit scenes, because they credited every single extra in that movie, and usually that doesn't happen. So yeah, I think I like Napoleon Dynamite more for this movie though, if I'm gonna be honest with you. It's just so strange, bit funny, you know?
No, yeah, and actually just kind of moving forward with that, like, I was thinking about the camera work. That's something that I usually, I guess visually always I'm attracted to in a film. And I thought that for the most part, I don't know what you thought about, if you even noticed, like, the camera work, but it was very, like, kind of stagnant. Like, there wasn't a lot of movement. Like, I feel like the actors themselves had to bring that movement towards the camera, And the moment that I saw it change was when Will was learning how to dance. And there's a scene where he's like stomping in like his room, and like everything starts to shake and the camera shakes. And that's why I even noticed that like the camera was so stagnant. And it wasn't until the dancing started that and the camera moved that it kind of, I think it's kind of symbolic, you know, that like dancing was kind of what shook the town and like made it change.
Yeah, I didn't actually think about that. Well, I did notice the camera movement, but I didn't notice how like all the scenes were stagnant until the dance scene. I didn't notice that part. So kudos to you for noticing that. As far as like the cinematography, I did notice the cinematography, the way they did it. You could tell it was guided by the rule of thirds. There are a lot of shots that are like as far as the rule of thirds. For those of you who don't know, rule of thirds is basically like if you take like a camera frame and you have 4 lines, so 2 lines horizontally and then 2 lines vertically intersecting each other. So they're like 4 points, 4 intersections. If you have like one figure in like one intersection, it's considered like appealing to the eyes. And there were a lot of moments where they had this happening. There was one where like one of the tractors is in the river and it's like in the foreground, and Kevin Bacon's in the background, and he's like at one of the intersections of the rule of thirds. And I noticed that part as well. And also when he's working at that mill, I noticed that as well. It's hard to describe it over audio because you kind of had to see it to know what I'm speaking about. But if you watch the movie with the rule of thirds in mind, you'll notice that there are a lot of scenes where they use that concept. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the first time I ever hear about that rule. I was just like,
I just assume people know until like I just say for the audience who don't know. So if you don't know, it's fine. Just look up rule of thirds and just practice it. Practice at home. As far as like the inspiration for this movie, I learned that it's based on Elmore City, Oklahoma. So Elmore City had forbidden public dancing by law since its founding in the 19th century.
oh wow.
And in January of 1979, the local high schoolers asked that the rules be changed so that they can have a prom, to the anger of the Reverend from the United Pentecostal Church. But the kids eventually won and they got a dance for prom night. And what's his name? Dean Pitchford, who wrote the lyrics for Fame, which is a movie. He read about it and visited the town, and he had this screenplay after 22 drafts.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of drafts. Like, if you're just writing one screenplay is already an undertaking. To write 22 drafts, ooh, that's a lot.
Did you think it was cheesy at all?
Yes.
Like on a scale of 1 to 10, and why? What's your reasoning?
1 being not cheesy, 10 being extremely cheesy. I give it a 7.
Okay.
Level of cheesiness.
What made it cheesy for you?
Just the fact that like the typical high school bullies bullying him. But this is different. I have an issue with the way bullying is portrayed in movies because it's gotten to the point where it's just like a stereotypical thing. But as far as the bullies in this movie, it kind of felt more believable, if that makes sense. Like this is kind of where the stereotype came from. Like the archetype for the bullies in movies in Hollywood today, it kind of came from these movies, you know? I would have to say like that scene in like when he had to speak in front of the public to advocate for dancing. That was a little cheesy as well because he like walked up to them on the podium and he says, dancing, they celebrated dancing from the Bible. And I kind of thought that was kind of cheesy. And the fact that that final fight scene was totally unnecessary. They should have called the cops because he beats a woman. And yeah, the whole thing. Yeah, what did you think it was cheesy?
So I think that the way that I kind of label a movie as cheesy typically is like if it made me cringe. Like, you know, if when they say in like Spanish like pena ajena, like when you're like kind of embarrassed for someone else. And then it didn't really make me cringe in that sense, like where I was like, oh my god, that's so embarrassing, like why would they do that? Like I wouldn't do that, like, you know. I actually didn't like feel like it was like cheesy in that sense, like in the cringy sense. But if we're like analyzing it from like a perspective of like kind of like, oh, the preacher's daughter falls in love with like the misfit guy and like like they end up like basically falling in love. Well, I don't know if they even have had that ending necessarily. Not really. That's interesting. So I wouldn't say like super cheesy, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I gave it an 8, just because it's like in the romance. It's a romance film.
Yeah, definitely. So a few more facts before we like kind of end this part. So Kevin Bacon, he went undercover as a high school student, and back when for the filming of this movie, he was 24 years old, and he was terrified of doing this. And he was treated the way his character ended up being treated in the movie, and he only lasted 2 to 3 hours.
He beat him up? Oh, not his nose!
And the thing is, so I'm reading the original article from 1984. It says, Kevin Bacon went back to high school for a day and found aspects of it terrifying before beginning his role in the movie Footloose. Bacon, who is 25, was doubtful he could pass for a student of 17, so it was arranged for him to attend school in Payson, Utah as a transfer student. The teachers had him stand up in class and talk about himself, and he's quoted as saying, "That's a terrifying thing," he said, quote, "You feel so alienated because you're put on the spot. People giggled and hooted and hollered. That whole scene." Bacon, with new wave clothes and a haircut for the movie, was doubly ridiculed, and he said, quote, "I looked like I was from another planet. They'd never seen anything like me," end quote. His high school experience lasted only 2 to 3 hours because that was all I could handle, he said.
Wow.
So
weak. I'm just kidding.
And the thing is, as well, he said he didn't really know what he was getting himself into because he had to train a lot with a choreographer. He spent 3 weeks for dance training, and he also worked on his gymnastics, and he said he worked the skin off his hands. He wasn't happy about needing stunt doubles, which honestly, like, okay, you don't have the skills, so get a stunt double, dude. Like, what are you going to do? Do it yourself? You can't do it yourself. So stop whining, okay?
I thought that was interesting when they would like switch to his stunt double. Mm-hmm. I just always, I don't know why, I really get a kick of like noticing when they switch like people or actors with their doubles, and like in the scene where he's like doing that whole flip and I don't know any gymnastics terms, but he's doing the whole little twirl in the sky, and like I was like, oh my god, that's so unrealistic, but interesting, nice touch, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for that scene where he's dancing by himself in the warehouse, which, by the way, I kind of saw it coming. He was about to dance away his frustrations. And yup, he was dancing away his frustrations.
That was a good scene.
It was a great scene, though. That part could have made or break the movie. I think that part made the movie.
Yeah.
As far as that scene, though, he required 4 stunt doubles.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
I think 2 of them for gymnastics, another 2 for, like, another one for dancing, another for the stunts that he did. And I thought that was, like, amazing. Because usually it's only, like, 1 or 2, but for 4 stunt doubles, it's a lot you need to do. And so Chris Penn, who played Willard, he was in Rush Hour, by the way, but that's not the fun fact. He came in with no dance skills, so it was like he was his character, essentially. So they actually had to like teach him how to dance and made a song specifically for that montage scene of him learning how to dance. And Kevin Bacon's jeans, they were made extra tight on purpose.
Yeah, he did wear tight jeans.
They were very tight, and he said this, "I remember having these pants on that were unbelievably tight already, but weren't quite tight enough for some of the shots." And he said this in a DVD commentary of the movie. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I'll watch it later. He continued saying, "They would take them and pin them from behind so they were really skin tight. It wasn't so much about sexiness as it was that line to make the dance move look more powerful." End quote.
Yeah, he wasn't the only one with tight pants. Ariel has very tight pants. Like throughout the movie, I was like, oh my god.
But who looked better? Who looked better though?
Kevin Bacon.
Exactly. And now a word from our sponsors. Now back to the show.
Romancing the Stone is a 1984 American romantic comedy adventure film directed by Robert Zemeckis and written by Diane Thomas. The film stars Michael Douglas, who also produced the film, Kathleen Turner, and Danny DeVito. It tells the story about a dowdy romantic adventure writer who is hurled into a real-life adventure in the Colombian jungle in order to save her sister, who will be killed if a treasure map is not delivered to her captors. She is helped out by a brash mercenary, and together they search for the priceless gem located in the map. This film was on Jason's list, Why was it?
So, Romancing the Stone was on my list because it's heavily discussed in the book The Writer's Journey by Chris Vogler. And it's literally used as a textbook example of how to use the hero's journey properly in a screenplay. Basically, this movie is a perfect example of the hero's journey in a movie. They just do it differently when it's traditionally used. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed this movie. And you had some words about it before recording here. What were those words, Daniela?
Well, to begin, I feel like it didn't really it started in a way that I wasn't expecting it to start, but it ended in a way that I expected it to end, if that makes any sense. So, like, in the beginning, I got definitely Quentin Tarantino vibes with, like, how, I guess you could call it the opening scene where it gives a little bit of backstory. It was very kind of, like, dark, you know, and kind of moving forward with how the movie progressed, it didn't become any lighter. It was still definitely like that dark kind of like theme. However, in terms of like the tone, I would say the tone became more, I guess, like kind of like what you see in like a romance like novel, like a film. So definitely not what I expected it to be, but it was a good movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so can you go over like a little bit how the movie started real quick for people who haven't seen this movie?
Oh, yeah. So basically, it's kind of like set up in like a Western type of scene. And it's, I guess, to describe the character, it's a woman. She's a white woman with blonde hair. She's wearing very, like, I guess, provocative clothing. You can't see her face for the most part. It's kind of like just black. Even when there's like light on her, it's just her face is like black, which I thought was interesting. And she's, I don't know if she was like sweaty or like she was just like wet, I don't know, but that was like a very a detail that I can't forget to mention.
I don't think they wanted us to forget it. They emphasized it.
Yeah, so
I think she needed a mop.
She did. Oh my god, I was just gonna bring up the WAP reference, but never mind. And then this older dude, very old, much older than her. He's like, I guess, trying to like find the treasure that she has hidden. So basically, she tells him that she has it, and she like kind of like starts like looking around at a slit in her skirt, and she has I don't know what those are called, like a harness on around her leg. I think they're called harnesses.
A girdie?
No, I don't think it's a girdie. It was something.
It was around her leg, right? It was around her leg.
And she had a knife, so then she takes the knife and like basically kills the bad guy and runs away. And then it just kind of like there was like it was very abrupt where it just switches the scene to like the actual main character, and she's writing her novel, and that was her novel, like the ending to her novel. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also important to note that like the character in the book that she's writing about, she runs to her man essentially, and he's enshadowed because it's the author's idealization of what man should be. And if you can see in like the posters of like her cover art for her books in her apartment, he's always in shadows, you know, because she doesn't know what she wants in a man.
That I actually didn't analyze it that way, but true.
Yeah, and you kind of see this noted in the beginning of the movie. Like once she's done writing the manuscript for the film, she goes to her agent and drops it off, and her agent's like looking at all the men saying, ugly, stupid. I'm like, oh, he's a cutie. And I see this man like, him? Okay.
I thought that was such a funny scene because there was that one guy that her editor was like, oh, he's cute, and I looked at him and I was like, he's not that cute
at all. And the part where she says, I think the agent says to her, you've got to be realistic. The men in real life aren't going to be the men in your books, you know, or something like that. And that's basically like her character flaw, I guess, like her idealization of men that she eventually like changes like throughout the course of the movie. Speaking of like the hero's journey, for those of you who are familiar with it, you don't need to hear about this next part. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the hero's journey, it's the monomyth that Joseph Campbell made after he analyzed several world myths and then basically said that there's an archetype for how these myths go. So it's basically, think of it as like a circle. So when a character starts at the beginning, he's in his own world. I'm gonna say he for right now. So they're in their own world. They start at the beginning, and then they have a call to adventure, right? But then they refuse the call for various reasons. So the call to adventure could be like your hometown is going to die if you don't save it eventually. You had to go on a quest to find this vaccine to save your town, right? And then they might refuse the call because like saying, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I can't do it. I don't have the skills necessary. But then something forces them to eventually go on to the quest. And then there's like a line in half, essentially. Like the top half of the circle is like their ordinary world, and the bottom half is like the supernatural world, all right? And they reach a point where like they go from like the ordinary world into the strange world. And they're new to it, they don't know what's going on, but they have a guide or like someone who will help them or a mentor. And then they go through and they have challenges. And then eventually they change their character, like their character's changing throughout this whole time. Eventually they come back to their ordinary world as a changed person. They come back with the item that they need to save their town. It could be like a physical thing or it could be a metaphorical thing. But that's how the basic hero's journey is. And the hero's journey is used in this film, and it's quite different from what I could have seen how it could have been, because she's mostly changing her character, and she doesn't really need the stone. She doesn't need the gem that they are looking for, the villains are looking for. She just wants to like save her sister and come back home. By the end, she changes her character. That's a very long explanation.
Yeah, I think once you explained that to me, it definitely like the way that I saw the movie changed. My perspective changed just because I was able to like break it down into like the segments that you just mentioned, and I feel like it clicked a little bit better for sure. So yeah, that's an interesting detail.
The reason I didn't say this because I want to see your initial reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your initial reaction to it before I told you why I watched the movie?
Well, to begin, as I am with most romance films, I'm like, like another cheesy romance film. Just going off of the one of the themes, which is the main character, how she idealizes like men and like she like writes about them, and I thought like, oh, like, chick flick, here it is. But definitely I thought that it was it's very structured, and I think that they did a really good job with like, adding like different details to it, despite like already having a set like structure in like the plot, and it's very easy to track. Like, I feel like it's a very good film to teach, like maybe like not even like, I can't remember what grade we learn like plot, but I think at any stage of whatever, if you're trying to like learn film or learn about like how to write better, I think this is a great film to just kind of follow along with. It was very structured, so I applaud that.
One of the things I liked about this movie was the structure behind it, so I commend that. One of the things I also found as a fun fact was that the writer for the movie, she wrote this movie 5 years before Indiana Jones came out, and this movie was called an Indiana Jones ripoff when it was made. When it wasn't a ripoff, it was written before Indiana Jones even existed. So if you watch this movie and think Indiana Jones, well, this was written before that. And the writer for the movie, she was a waitress when she made this movie. Her only screenplay to be produced into a film. And I think she got like $250,000 when she sold it. And the movie was so successful, it got a sequel. But unfortunately, she died like 5 weeks before the sequel came out. And I felt really bad about that because that film, Romancing the Stone, was so popular that she even got a job working with Steven Spielberg to make another Indiana Jones movie. And eventually wasn't used. The screenplay wasn't used because she already written a draft for a bit. It just like, it kind of breaks your heart that like she found success as a screenwriter and she dies before her second movie came out.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of sad because, her life essentially turned around for the better, and then like she just didn't get her credit. But well, she got her credit, but like she didn't get the opportunity, right?
Yeah. But some of the fun facts I want to talk about. So Robert Zemeckis, he's the director of the movie. Quick fact, he's the director of Back to the Future. And the reason why I was able to make the Back to the Future is because of the success of Romancing the Stone. So if he never got to direct it, Back to the Future probably would have never happened. So if there was a real life Marty McFly, it would have to be Michael Douglas because he actually, Robert was fired from doing the job. There's a whole complicated story behind it. So Robert, he went to film school, right? He's one of those film school directors that became popular after Steven Spielberg. There's a whole generation of those like film school directors. Steven Spielberg is one of those. Robert Zemeckis is also one of those as well. He made two films that were not great. It didn't do very well in the box office. They're considered flops. And he was directing a third movie called Cocoon when he saw the script for Romancing the Stone, and he wanted to direct that one as well. And he was kind of attached to it. Unfortunately, 20th Century Fox, who like produced the movie, didn't want him to be there because they knew about his other two films. And then it's so funny the way this happened. They fired him for being director for Romancing the Stone before he even did any work on it because he was directing another movie that wasn't even finished called Cocoon. And they saw the initial rough cut and they fired him from it. So he was fired from two jobs essentially because of like his previous work. And it kind of like, it's so crazy how that works out. Because Michael Douglas fought for him to be on the movie, to be as a director. So they took a chance on it, and then he became director and became successful. So Michael Douglas is the Marty McFly of Robert's career, of Back to the Future and everything, because he made sure he got a job.
Hey, and you know what? The bigger lesson here for anyone struggling in their careers or in their lives, if they tear you down, just keep trying. He did it, and then look at where he got. You know, he got his jobs back essentially.
And have someone fighting in your corner. You know, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
True.
So another fun fact about this. So it's a lot less common now because we can own the film after the movie. But back then, novelizations of films were popular because there wasn't really a chance for you to own the movie after it was released in theaters. Nowadays, it's easier with like Blu-ray and streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max. When they made the novelization for this movie, it was credited to Joan Wilder, who is the main character of the movie, who is the romance writer. And I thought that was very unique as well. And like the sequel, The Jewel of the Nile, was also credited by Joan Wilder as well. But they were actually written by an actual woman. Her name was Catherine Lanigan. It's just so interesting. Like they actually went through like the merchandise thing, like saying, "You want to get the book? Yeah, here's the book written by Joan Wilder." I found that very interesting.
Yeah, give women credit.
A woman did write it. Actually, two women. Yeah. One wrote the screenplay and a woman wrote the novelization.
Mad props, because in that time, I mean, even now, you know, we see a lack of female directors, female writers, and I think that even it's refreshing to hear, like, even then, you know, it's been a struggle and it's a continuous struggle, but, you know, we need more female representation in these industries, entertainment industries.
Definitely. And something else I found interesting was that, like, we just talked about Footloose and how many leads were considered, how many actors were considered for the role before it eventually went to who they were cast. So leads who were considered for Michael Douglas's character were, it's also another long list right here. There was Burt Reynolds, Clint Eastwood, Paul Newman, Sylvester Stallone, and Christopher Reeve. And Deborah Winger was considered for Joan Wilder. But Burt Reynolds, I only know him from like the parody from SNL and Jeopardy.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh.
Right. All right, let's go to Burt Reynolds. Yeah, I'll do this for 600. That's not a category. Choose an extra category. All right. What is Toyota? What? I don't know you know what I'm talking about. But the fact they also considered Christopher Reeve, who played Superman from the classic 1979 Superman, that would have been something. I would have loved to see Christopher Reeve in this role because I don't know how he would do it because he's always seen as like a gentleman. I want to see how he would be like as a mercenary. But Michael Douglas, I think that was a great choice. He took the role and he did a very good job of his. And so did Kathleen Turner as Joan Wilder.
Yeah, there was, Manuel Ojeda, who was Solo. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I just thought it was really interesting I wasn't expecting to see him, like, in that film. just because, like, he's a very well-known telenovela Mexican actor, and I think that his background in, like, the telenovela scene really made, I guess, the dramatic tone of the film. I think he emphasized that, and I thought that was really, really well thought out, and in terms of, like, who they casted for the role of Solo. So yeah, just a little detail, because I was low-key kind of fangirling, because I watched telenovelas, growing up, and seeing him appear, I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm actually not familiar with him, but that doesn't surprise me. He did a very good job with it. And I just saw his like list of like credits, and it's a very long list.
Yeah, he did a lot.
But another fun fact, this movie was set in Colombia,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't made in Colombia. It was made in Mexico, in the jungles of Mexico, because in a twist of irony, there were reports of American kidnappings in Colombia. So that's why they had to like, move it to Mexico.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting.
yeah. And it took place in Veracruz and Huasca de Ocampo. And parts of it were shot in Snow Canyon in Utah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. That's cool.
For that mudslide, I found this very interesting. The way they did mudslide, they kind of built a trench and they made like a sled for the camera. The actors were attached to the sled and the camera was facing them. And when they were sliding down, there were like crew on the sidelines and they were throwing water and mud at them from the sides as they were like doing the mudslide. And they actually enjoyed doing that mudslide scene. Insurance people didn't like it, but the actors actually enjoyed doing it. So that was a lot of fun for them. And they should have known this before going in. They went into the movie, into the jungles of Mexico, without knowing about the season and how it was going to be raining a lot. So they were actually very wet. The cast and crew were very wet when they were making this movie. They needed a mop.
Yeah, they needed a mop. I'm good.
What things did you like about this movie besides the cast?
I think the sound effects. It was such an 80s thing. I think, or not 80s, but there was that Western component to it. Like when they would do the like gunshots, you would hear pew pew. That's not a good like how they do it. But I thought the sound effects were really good. Definitely added to that kind of component of, I guess, more of like not reality. Because, like, how that shift from, like, imagination to reality, that was a very prominent theme, I think. And the fact that, there were, like, constant, like, changes with that. And, like, just having sound effects kind of, like, made you, like, kind of, like, whoa, I thought this was, like, reality, right? So I thought that was an interesting component. And one scene that really caught my attention was in the early scenes when the sister was getting kidnapped and the little boy was like playing with like I don't know if it was like a jump rope. And then he just starts like swinging it out of nowhere, and then like he just like throws it at her, and then like she like faints in the car, and then he just drives the car away. I was like, what kind of kid?
I completely forgot about that. I don't know how I forgot that part, because it's such a bewildering scene where like a child hitman essentially swings like a lasso or whatever at her, and she's like knocked out because like they're like rocks at the end, and he drives the car away.
Yeah, like a little kid. I was like, what does he eat?
Yeah, I want to know more about his story, because like that was out of nowhere, man. He's like the Boba Fett of Star Wars essentially. No one knows his backstory, but he's so interesting.
Yeah, and because I watched it on Prime, I really enjoy that Prime. They have the X-ray, and you can see like in certain scenes what actors were on the scene, and they actually do have his like actual like picture and name. I just don't remember it right now. But he's still like an actor. So
really?
Yeah, I just didn't catch his name, but
yeah, that's so interesting, because it was like I really like that part. It was like so out of nowhere and ridiculous, but like I still enjoyed it, Is that part. I will say, I'm also not a big fan of romance movies, kind of like you said. Only a couple of exceptions. And the only exception I can think of right now, actually there's two. There's Hitch with Will Smith. I think you've heard of that one.
Yeah.
And there's also Confessions of a Shopaholic. I actually really like that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
That's been
crazy, right? I actually like
I
that
haven't
movie.
watched it, but it comes up on my watch list like on Prime.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I'm kind of hesitant to watch it just because it seems like a chick flick, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of is, but like I really like it because Isla Fisher, she's a very charming actress. She's a very charming lead, and I liked
Mm.
her in that movie. And it's like an issue like people we need to talk about. We have shopaholics in this nation. This consumerism culture of capitalism and everything. You know, they don't explore that. She just needs to get help. She actually needed help, and she got help. Um, and yeah, so like I'm not a big fan of romance movies, and this movie I thought it was gonna be like cringy and like the cheesiness, but I wasn't. I was actually smiling when I saw them kiss at the end, like, oh, look at them, and they're on that boat sailing on that road across New York, like, which
Yeah.
by the way must have been a nightmare because permits in New York for like filming already, like just in general, are kind of ridiculous. They're expensive. That's why they moved to LA in the first place when production companies did that, but also the fact that like the road was clear for them to move in and you couldn't see any more cars, and there were barely any people on the sidewalks. The way they were able to do that, I want to know how they did that, because it was practically an empty street and they were able to sail, not really sail, you know what I mean, like they were able to get on the sailboat, which is on like a truck, and then move across. But I was smiling at the end. I really like, because like they ended up together and they got the money, they got the boat. I just got to
Yeah.
lie low.
Yeah, and I mean, in comparison to like Footloose, I feel like you don't get that traditional like happy ending where like it was. I feel like more there was more uncertainty than anything because like I wasn't really sure if Ren and Ariel were like a thing by the end of it. It just kind of
Yeah.
seemed like it, but it's such a like they contrast like in that way, like, and I thought that was really interesting too.
And I will say I enjoyed Romance in the Stone more than I did Footloose. But not to like discredit Footloose. They were both great films, but I just enjoyed Romance in the Stone because I like adventure movies more, you know?
I like Footloose because I like dance movies. Like growing up, I was always into those cheerleading movies. What were they called? The I can't remember. I'm blanking out right now. But you know those cheerleading movies, like '90s cheerleading movies.
Yeah. Wasn't Reese
Bring It
Witherspoon in
On.
one? Bring It On! There we go.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
know I
like
knew what
those
we were talking
movies.
about. I knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, so I like, and I mean just the soundtrack. I think that part of what makes a good film is a good soundtrack. Like one of my favorite soundtracks is from Tarzan. Even though it's like an anime, it's such a good.
He didn't have to go so hard. He didn't have
Yeah,
to.
it's such a good soundtrack. And what other movie? Spirit. I don't know if you've ever watched Spirit. I know I'm going off tangent here,
Yeah,
but
you're good.
another good soundtrack. But I just really like that there was like that soundtrack component to Footloose, and it's such a the song. It's just something that you hear like even today, and I think it's like what makes it a classic is that it's timeless, and that's why I really enjoyed watching Footloose. And I had
Yeah.
never watched it before, so I was like, oh, it's nice.
It's also hard to believe that like there were like two songs from that movie that like I listen to this day. There was like I Need a Hero, which I was surprised like like wait you're doing this for like a game of chicken, okay? And there was
Even in
also
Shrek. It comes
yeah,
out in Shrek.
that's where I first heard it. That's where I first heard it.
Yeah.
I think I like it more in Shrek though, because like they actually needed a hero to save Fiona.
Right.
And also Footloose, which is like I said before, you kind of hear it everywhere. And there's another song in there I never heard before. Let me look it up on my Spotify. It's Heaven Helps the Man Who Faces His Fears, or otherwise known as I'm Free by Kenny Loggins. But yeah, I really liked it. The soundtrack slaps hard.
Yeah, I love a good soundtrack.
All right, so Danielle, do you think you should have seen Footloose sooner?
I can't say that I wish I would have, but no, I think it came at a right time, just because like I don't really think it was like one of my top faves that I was like I would have been like, wow, I wish I would have heard about it more like earlier or whatever. I think it was definitely something that I had to watch to step out of my comfort zone, so I think it came at the right time.
Same for me. Well, as far as Footloose, yeah, I believe it was the right time for me to watch it because it definitely wasn't on my list and it wasn't on my radar. But I think it was good to finally watch it.
Yeah, and then what about with Romancing the Stone? Do you wish you had seen it like before or earlier?
So I read The Writer's Journey, which is like where I got the idea to watch it, like back in like August, September. And so it wasn't on my list that long, honestly. And I didn't think it'll be available online, if I'll be honest with you, because it's an older movie and it's a good movie, but it's not as popular now as like Back to the Future or whatever. So it definitely wasn't on my radar to watch it. But like when we had our discussion like last week on like what movies to watch for a movie, once I saw that, I was like, oh, we should watch it. So right time for me. I think that was the right time for me because I hadn't heard of this movie before last year, essentially. So I'm really glad I got to see it when I saw it because I had a really good time with it. All right, so we've reached the end of our discussion. Daniela, thank you so much for being here. And real quick, for both movies, were they a hit or a miss with you?
I mean, I'm not going to say like, oh, they were like my favorite movies of all time, but definitely I enjoyed them. So, and I definitely can't dismiss that. So they were hits.
I had to agree as well. They weren't misses for me. They were hits for me. So where can our listeners find you on social media? Basically,
on my platforms, I'm Danila Vanilla. That's DANILLA and Vanilla. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, my name's just Daniela Sandoval, and LinkedIn, Daniela Sandoval, if you want to connect. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I'm very exclusive with my LinkedIn. If I've never met you or had a conversation with you, I don't want to connect most of the time.
Oh, really? I usually just, deny the request if I don't know them, but yeah.
I just let it sit. Like, think of what you've done.
Oh my God.
Like, the only exception is for like HSF scholars. But beyond that, like, if we don't have any like shared connections or you don't even like have a note for me to read like why you want to connect with me, like what's your reason for wanting to connect with me, I'm not gonna accept at all. But you can follow me on Instagram. All right, so that's the episode, folks. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, cross off a new film from your list. Thank you for listening to the Hit List Podcast. If you like this episode, please consider giving us 5 stars and leaving a review. It really does help. You can also follow us on Facebook at The Hit List Podcast and Instagram at _hitlist_podcast.